Are you ready to unlock your full potential and maximize your productivity? Look no further than Productivity Smarts, the ultimate audio podcast hosted by renowned productivity expert Gerald J. Leonard. In every episode, Gerald shares captivating stories, invaluable tips, and cutting-edge strategies that will transform the way you approach productivity. Whether you're looking to reduce stress, overcome overwhelm, or simply get more done in less time, Productivity Smarts has got you covered. But that's not all. You'll also gain inspiration from real-life success stories of individuals who have achieved greatness through productivity. Plus, you'll learn the latest tools, techniques, and habits that will help you achieve a new level of happiness and fulfillment in your personal and professional life. So why wait? Join us every week as we delve into the exciting world of productivity and help you unleash your full potential. Get ready to take your productivity to the next level with Productivity Smarts. As a productivity expert and host of the Productivity Smarts podcast, Gerald J. Leonard has been a proud supporter of Kiva since 2011. Kiva is a non-profit organization that helps entrepreneurs in third world countries access the capital they need to start or grow their businesses. By making a small loan through Kiva, you can help these entrepreneurs achieve their dreams, support their families, and contribute to their local economies. And with a repayment rate of over 96%, your loan can be relent to another entrepreneur once it's repaid, creating a ripple effect of positive change. So if you're looking for a meaningful way to make a difference in the world, consider making a loan through Kiva. With loans as small as $25, anyone can be a microlender and help change lives. Visit kiva.org to learn more and start lending today.
Well, good day, everyone. Today I have with me an author, a TED speaker, Nathaniel A. Turner. I'm going to call him Nat. Nat
Don't scare the people.
JD and an MALS. That's a Master's in Arts and Liberal Science. And he is a self-described humanitarian propulsion engineer. Turner's appeared in many media outlets, including the Washington Post, Black Enterprise, iHeartRadio, The Good Men's Project, Sirius XM, U.S. News and World Report, corporations and municipalities and NGOs like the Anthem, Inc., National Collegiate Athletic Association, and the City of Minneapolis, and the National Society of Black Engineers invite Nate to share his practical message for living the life we've all imagined while serving the greater good. Nate, how are you? I think I might have called you Nat too.
It's all good. I was just like, don't scare people. Yes. You start calling me Nat Turner. Making people nervous. No. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Listen, obviously you got some really great things going on here, and I was really impressed when we met earlier to talk about being on the show. So what's made you so successful up to this point in your life? Like, what's gotten you?
Well, the interesting thing about success, I would say philosophically, is you're only as good as you are on the new day. So yesterday, in my mind, doesn't matter. So have I been successful today? I'm not quite sure. I got a few hours left. But seriously, I think what makes anyone successful, that we're all amalgamations of the people, places, and things that have been a part of our life.
Yes.
And so whatever I am, if you find me successful, I'm only that because people decided to love me for no reason and poured the best of themselves into me.
Excellent. I'm going to have fun. We're going to have a good time today. I like that answer. I really do. So let me ask you this, because we're going to talk about journaling, which I think is really critical and it's very important for our own health and well-being and mental and so on. What do you think is poorly understood about journaling?
Well, I do journaling, as you know, I do journaling a little different than most people. I journal forward, where most people journal, and I used to be one of those people. I journaled about the things that happened previously. I journal about something that frustrated me. I may journal about something that worked well for me, but what's misunderstood by the way I journal is that I just journal each day about the life I want to live, as opposed to the life that I'm currently living.
Yeah, and there's some amazing things about that I've actually researched in my own life that I'd love to talk to you about. But before that, I want to ask you, what's your story? How did you go from where you were to this person who's journaling forward and writing out about the life that you want and then manifesting or watching that become a reality in your life?
The adult version of me, we'll start with that. The adult version of me This is not what we cue to 1970 music.
Okay.
The adult version of me had a son who at 16 decided that he wanted to leave the country. My wife and I had done this thing called backward design with his life. We prepared him to meet the academic qualifications at Harvard. Our goal was to do that when he finished high school, but he started high school as a seventh grader, so that when he was finishing his first semester of his junior year, he said, while we were standing on the Grand Canyon, that he had no intentions of going back to school for a senior year of high school, that it was a complete waste of time, that he had been raised to dream, that he was ready to go out and sort of chase his dream. And one of his dreams was playing professional soccer overseas. And so he said, you got to get me out of here. I need to leave. So I got to figure out how to get this child out of the country. I just finished reading The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and The 4-Hour Work Week from Timothy Ferriss. And I'm sure you've read that because that has great tips. And so I was like, okay, I got to figure it out. And I found a way. We took him to Brazil. He tried out for some of the top academies. He was accepted at a couple of them. And he said, good, I'm staying. So we come back and we're getting him packed to go back for good. And he and I are in the car. And he's looking at me and talking to me, and I'm crying. And he says, man, what's wrong with you? And I said, you're leaving. And he said, well, Dad, what are your dreams? And I said, I don't have any. Like, the only dream I've had as an adult was to see your life succeed. Right. And you're now leaving me much sooner than I had planned. And he says these words, Dad, it's not too late. You still have time. You can do more. What are your dreams? And so at that point, that's when my life sort of changed. And I had to start doing the things that I've been showing a child how to do. And one of those things, and I apologize, it's a long story, it was to begin to journal, because I've been asking him to do that. He had been doing that the entirety of his life.
Wow.
But I had never done it.
Wow. So he flipped the script on you.
He says, hey, no more do as I say. You do it too, man. You see how good this is working for me? What are you waiting on?
My life is working out, Dad. What's going on?
Absolutely. Hey, what is your problem?
I'm happy.
Exactly.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And, you know, when you hit a point like that, it will wake you up and make you go like, wait a minute, what have I been doing? And let me think about how I've set him up for him to be at that age and to be so mature and to be ready to move on in life. And, you know, how's he doing now?
He's doctor now. He's Dr. Naeem A. Turner-Bendelli. He holds a PhD in electrical and computer engineering from Carnegie Mellon University. And he just finished his first year at NYU, working on his MBA in quantitative finance and entrepreneurship. So he's great.
That doesn't sound like he's struggling at all.
He's doing fine. And guess what? And I always tell people, like, and it's costing me no money.
There you go.
Which is even better.
That's the best way. That's the best way. So let's take a deep dive in your book, because actually you're an amazing example of someone who's not only doing it in your own life, but that you prototyped it in your son's life. And he kind of laid the blueprint out for you, what your life has become, right? And what you're teaching in your life, because you were able to do it in his life without even you being aware of it, that you were doing all of this for him and what it's going to do to you. So I read through your book. I was very impressed. And I love the idea of the journey forward, because I think, like you said, many of us journal and we relive a bad day. And the more thoughts you have about a certain direction is the more you attract that direction into your life. So if you're sitting there journaling and thinking and waking up every day, reliving a negative life, then guess what? The next day is going to be full of
negative life.
A negative life, the same thing. Mm-hmm. So the idea of journaling and journeying forward through journaling forward and writing out about the life that you want, you're basically beginning the creation process of that life. Right? So first question I have for you is, in your book, you emphasize the power of journaling. How does the practice of journaling enhances a person's productivity? And how did it enhance your productivity? What did it do for you to journal forward?
Sure. Yeah. So you know this stuff, so I'm not going to even pretend that I'm a neuroscientist, but I know enough to play a doctor on TV. But I do know that we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts every day. And to your point, most days we're just repeating the thoughts and actions, which then become the actions that we had the previous day.
Right.
What I learned as a person who also suffers from depression was that I needed to find a way to get out of my head about the things that were happening previously.
Yeah.
So I started, as I mentioned, journaling about what was happening, and all it did, it just frustrated me even more. And so this idea of, okay, well, if there are 60 to 70,000 thoughts every day, and if the way to change your thoughts to think about something different, then what I decided to do was each morning I would spend, at first it was the first 8 minutes to just write what I would like to happen in my life. And eventually it became 14 minutes. And then that was 1% of my day. So 1,440 minutes in a day, I spend 14 minutes. I spend 1% of my day. And then I ended up moving it to 20 minutes because I learned some things about, as I was teaching my son, about how long you could deliberately focus on something.
Yeah.
And the science was age plus 3 up to 20. So I said, okay, I'm gonna set the time for 20 minutes. I'm just gonna start writing my life the way I would want it to be.
Right.
And there's some spiritual principles, but there's scientific principles. My grandmother used to tell me, as a person think it, so are they.
Yep.
And so those kind of things became part of what I would do on a daily basis.
Exactly. What's amazing about that, because unlike you where you're journaling forward, I do mine a little different. And that is, I take my goals, right? The different areas of my life, and I mainly break it into 4 areas: success, growth, relationships, and health, right?
Okay.
Breaking those main 4 areas. I mean, you can do a lot more, different categories, but those are the main 4 areas that we kind of. And then I will take a goal, but then I'll write it out as an affirmation. So you can say, I'm grateful and happy that I'm doing this and I'm doing this, and in the present tense. But then I had a coach, Dr. Paul Shealy. He said, what if you turn that into a question? Because the brain loves questions. And in a way, so then I started writing, in how many ways am I living my life with this or that already in it? So it's kind of like you're journaling forward, but I have these big goals and I write them out in the present tense as questions. And then I'll write some more affirmational things of what I want in my life. And that's what I notice in my life. And I want to ask if you've experienced the same thing. After about, let's say, 15, 20, 30 days of doing that consistently and starting to see things come to pass that were happening in my life, I was talking to one of my coaches. I said, I feel like I'm in a canoe and I'm just gently floating down the stream, and all of these things are coming at me, and they're the things that I'm writing in my journal. Have you ever experienced that?
I've had the very same experience. I wrote, so to your point, there are 3 elements to my life. I call it the human trinity. I'd say daily I write about things related to who I am mentally, who I am physically, and who I am spiritually. Obviously, the physical piece is I want to be in excellent health, maintain abundant wealth. I oftentimes have to explain that to people because I'm not just talking about currency, and I want to have timeless wisdom. Those are the 3 elements that I write about every single day. But then there are other things that along in that I say, well, I may write one day about, hey, I'm in front of 10,000 people and I'm giving a speech somewhere and we're talking about this, that, and the other. And then one day I got an invitation to go speak at a school district in California with 11,000 people. I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh, and I write about, hey, I'm going to come home one day and I'm going to just hop on a plane and take my family to Hawaii. And it was during the pandemic and they invited me out to California and I looked at the plane tickets. Then the plane tickets from California to Hawaii were $100 round trip. So I was like, okay, we're going to go. So yeah, let's go. So yeah, I have seen those kinds of things manifest itself from giving conferences. And I'll be quiet. I went and spoke for the National Educators Association. They invited me to come speak and they asked me to be a breakout room speaker. So fine, I went and I spoke. And this is no disrespect to the keynote speaker. I saw the keynote speaker and I was like, are you kidding me? I could be keynote. And the next day I wrote this journal about how I broke out of the breakout room and I was the keynote speaker. And I have a friend, her name is Robin. She's the person who co-authored the book with me, who writes the reflections and action items. Who
told you to write this book?
Who voluntold me. And now there's an audio version of this too. And she appears on that. She said she worked for the NEA at the time and she read the journal and she called me and she was just laughing. And I said, what are you laughing about? She says, you don't know that the journal has already happened. And I said, what do you mean it's happened? She says, they're going to ask you to keynote. I keynoted at the event the following year.
There you go. Yeah, I experienced that as well I just keynoted for a group out in New Orleans. They
Okay.
give me my full fee, and they call me. And I asked them, I said, who else are you looking at for this spot? For They were like, well, you keynote by playing your bass and talking about neuroscience and this and that and so on, and you play jazz. We're not talking to anybody else. We want you.
Right. Right.
It's one of my goals that I write about daily and about how I want to travel and what countries I want to go to and so on. And it's amazing because many of the things that have been happening and will continue to happen, and I believe will continue to happen in your life as you practice this process, will happen without you efforting. In my
Right.
past, I would effort to get things done. I would, come up with a plan, come up with a strategy. I'm a project manager and, technically, and I would plan it all out and I would start working like crazy to make it happen. Right. And sometimes it happened, sometimes it didn't happen. Most times it didn't happen. And you'd be frustrated and all the other stuff that goes along with that. But this process was just learning how to be. By learning how to be, I found that now I become a magnet for the life that I want. And it's not just about money, right? It's about
Right.
abundance of relationships, abundance of friendships, abundance of knowledge and insight, abundance of wisdom or understanding. Those
Mm-hmm.
things are there as well.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So let me ask you this. What techniques or specific techniques that you talk about in your book when it comes to prioritizing your activities, right? Prioritizing activities or goals that you have developed through journaling.
Well, like I said, the first thing I do is I don't talk to anyone. So I'm kind of a rude person to be married to and live with, because I'll get up and I won't really say anything. So generally, the first thing, the part of it is that I just sit and I wait. You mentioned being just to be. I just be. I just am. I just sit quietly and wait, and then usually I hear something or I receive something, and that becomes the thing I use to get started writing what I write. I also have, as a part of my process, I have a vision board. I have a huge vision board in my office. It's probably about 5 feet by 6 feet. That same board is on my next to my bed. I'm sure my wife is tired of looking at it. It's next to my bed. It's on the mirror in the bathroom. It's on my phone. It's on my laptop. It's everywhere. And for me, that becomes like my North Star. I just came back from Canada, ironically, and I was able to go see the church where Harriet Tubman brought the escaped enslaved people from America. And I always said, hey, we all need a North Star. And so the vision board becomes a North Star. And so there's like, I write affirmations. I have several affirmations that I say that when you say them enough, the people who know you start to regurgitate your affirmations, even when you don't feel like being who you say you are, which I think is a really kind of unique, kind of a cool thing with the momentum all moving forward. Like you mentioned, being in your canoe.
Exactly, exactly. Now, one of my coaches, I just got some endorsements from Jack Canfield, and he introduced me, and a couple other people have as well, to Marie Diamond, who does feng shui, right? And it's about
Mm.
energy and how your home and so on and so forth. But one of the things she teaches is that you can like set up your home to be your vision board.
Wow. Okay.
So I have a section of places I want to travel, and I've literally bought all of the travel books for those places. And I kind of have, I can see them. I have pictures of places I've been that I want to go back to, and those are the pictures on the wall there. I have family in my second marriage, and so we both have grown kids. So I have all of them up there. One of my goals is to be very close to all of my kids and my stepkids, and treat them fairly and be connected with them. And so idea of having a vision board, right?
Mm-hmm.
And almost,
Mm-hmm.
setting up reminders. I have a note. I'm looking at one right now on the back wall here that says, how would an abundant person live? I
Mm.
have that in my car. I have that in my bathroom because every day I look at it and go, okay, how would an abundant person, would an abundant person be depressed or snarky or what? You know what I mean? And so just those little bitty triggers as you're
Mm-hmm.
doing the practice. And the other thing that you said there was before you start your routine, you sit quietly. There's some things to that. It's because one, you're listening to your intuitive thoughts, right? Some people can call it your God voice, or
Right.
listen for inspiration from the Lord or from God. If
Mm.
that's where you are. That's where I'm
Mm.
at. But I also
Hmm.
know that if I'm quiet, then I have this still small voice that kind of guides me, right? And so again, I kind of have a prescriptive thing, but there are some parts of my journaling or journaling forward where I write about what my life is going to be like. And more than not, those things become true without
Hmm.
efforting, simply by writing them down and embracing them. And here's the other thing that's really neat about writing, and this is from neuroscience, is when you write, you're actually moving neurons in your brain closer together so that it's kind of like when someone says, I don't want to forget this, so let me write it down.
Right down. Yep.
So why
Yep.
do we write it down? We write it down
Right.
because it actually physically moves the neurons closer. So the electrical impulses has less space to jump, and it's a way of bypassing our conscious mind to our subconscious and writing out where we're going to our subconscious, because most of our life is driven by our subconscious thoughts, right? Like you said, we have these 40,000 thoughts a day. Most of this is paradigms and habits from our non-conscious, our subconscious mind. And
Right.
we become someone who is just habitually doing stuff like driving home from work, where as you're driving home, right? You don't even know how you got home. You just drove home because you just went the same way. So it's really, really critical. Now, let me ask you this. In what ways does envisioning and manifesting a desired life through journaling, what kind of what we've been talking about,
Mhm.
translates into tangible productivity improvements in your day to day? So I know that what you're saying is, hey, I've written about this, and next thing I know, I'm invited to that. But how do you see it actually impacting the way you go throughout your day, being productive and getting things done and seeing, an impact?
So I feel little bit like what happens with journaling. It's similar to a GPS
Yes.
where you program where you want to go. I think when you wake up, you and I mentioned, you program where it is you want to go, then your energy leads you in that direction, even to your point where you're not consciously aware that that's exactly what you're doing.
Man,
If
you
I
better
wake up,
you better write that one down. And you better write that one down and trademark it, because that was good.
well, you're recorded, so so you can tell me what it is I said because most time I don't know what I said. but yeah, I feel like it's really that. And it becomes that. So I have a series of other things that I do.
Yeah.
And you asked me again, where did it start? And I was just thinking about like, this is hilarious because this ideal, this question that you said, this is the thing that I did for a child. My son told me he wanted to and my son and my nephew, both of them were pretty good high school athletes. My son said, I want to run in the Olympics in 2012. This was then, and he wanted to play soccer for in La Liga for Barcelona.
Right.
And this was mate Dotrix printer, whatever. So I printed these big banners that said, what did you do today to get to La Liga? And what did you do today to compete in London 2012? And
Right.
for my nephew, I did one for him. And it says, what did you do today to get to the NBA? My nephew it's his 11th year in the NBA.
Wow.
My son was pretty good in track and field as a 12, 13-year-old. He was second in the nation, finished fifth in a world meet. I won't bother to talk about it. There was some challenges with him running in high school. But as
Yes.
I just mentioned, he went and played soccer in Brazil, had tryouts in Germany. So it's interesting that the question just that you just were asking,
Yeah.
I was asking them those questions, but I was never asking myself a question.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the challenge is for all of us, especially as you're listening, are you asking other people questions that you're not asking yourself?
So
Because
yeah.
then we actually do a disservice to ourselves.
Yeah.
But we have to take the mindset of when we're on the plane and they say, hey, in case of emergency, put your own mask on first, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah,
That's absolutely.
we have to put our own mask on first and do it first for ourselves. Then we can help other people. But hey, that's an amazing realization that you're having there. But it does make a tremendous difference. And here's the thing about it, it doesn't matter this law, whether you call it the law of manifestation, law of energy, law of attraction, or whatever you call it, doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter if you are rich or poor, It doesn't matter what continent you're on. It doesn't matter if you're green, blue, black, yellow, white, purple, orange, whatever color you are. It doesn't matter.
Right.
The principles are the laws of humanity. And if we put them into practice, they will manifest themselves, right? They will manifest themselves because you're not the only person that I've talked to that have given me, have said, this is what I've done. And I wrote out this and I just put it in a way I could see it every day. And lo and behold, within a short period of time, this thing became true.
One of the points I always ask people to be careful about, certainly I am, is that I try to focus less on the outcome
Yep.
and more on the process. You mentioned the canoe. I dare not get in the canoe because I can't swim. But if I could, I definitely have a life raft. But if you're asking me to get in the canoe and I'd say, well, where are we going? I know that I have to row because it's not a sailboat. There's a canoe. So I have to do something. And every day I'm going to have to row. And I think about like my process for life similarly. Now, I don't call it rowing. I call it farming. That every day I have to do what farmers do. Every day you got to rise early. Every day you got to plant, you got to plow, you got to pull weeds, you got to deal with fertilizer. Sometimes you get more fertilizer than you need.
Right.
You got to irrigate the land. And then you go to bed and you start all over. You don't have any control of the weather. You don't have control of the frost. You don't have control of certain things. But in order to succeed, to have a harvest at any point, there's certain things you have to do. And so that's what I try to do. Yes. What can I do every day? Journaling is one of those things.
Exactly. Now, there are people who struggle with maintaining consistency when it comes to journaling. What strategies do you use to help you remain consistent when it comes to journaling?
Well, I made the mistake of telling people that I was doing it. And then some people ask me to share it. So I find that if you don't keep stuff a secret and you're willing to share, at least in my mind, that I'm more likely to continue than I am when I do it alone.
Yeah.
I think of it like New Year's resolutions, and people make resolutions that they're going to do something. And then, before the month is over, they have it. But if you had somebody in your family that was ill and you wanted them to live, you would do everything possible to make sure that they got the best health care and they were on top of their meds and all that kind of stuff. So I found that the more people that I could share it with and the more people we could build a community with, the more I'm likely to continue doing it.
Exactly. Just having a group of people, whether it's a one-on-one person that you are to as an accountability person or a mastermind group or just an association or just a group of friends that you're going to, hey, here's what I'm working on, that you can talk to about it. But here's something I've figured out as well for myself. I share those things and I try to share it in a way where I'm not boasting about what's happening, because sometimes a lot can happen really fast and you go like, wow, that's amazing. So you don't want to always kind of like, hey, look at this, look at this, look at this kind of thing, right? Because that gets old. But what I do know is that once you get started and you pass a period of time where you're kind of in a slump and you're doing it, right? Like you say, you can just take the farmer's mentality and you put a deadline on it to say, well, if I don't see anything within 10 days, I'm not doing it anymore. You just do it until you start seeing something.
Right.
Once you see things beginning to come to fruition, you get hooked.
Absolutely.
I know for me, it's almost like brushing your teeth. I can't leave get up in the morning and just walk out and not brush my teeth, right? Because it's like, okay, it doesn't feel right? It's just, it's a habit. And so what'll happen is you will do this practice of being still in the morning, GPSing your day, right? I like that saying, GPSing your day. I might take that one.
Yeah, have it.
No, Jesus, you can have it. But GPSing your day or meditating and but then writing it out. And when you start seeing the reality of those things come to pass, you get hooked on being. And it's no longer just about doing, and it's no longer just about accomplishing the goal, because the idea is that when a goal does come to pass, like for your son, was able to go to Brazil and achieve this goal of being accepted as a soccer player because he had become a soccer player, right?
That's right.
It's a doctor and from Carnegie Mellon because he has become right?
Right.
And to me, that is the goal, the GOLD goal, the GOAL. The goal of the goal is who you become. Because once you achieve that ability, guess what? No one, it's not like a job. They can say, well, I'm going to fire you and you're going to lose your job. Well, okay, fire me. I'll
Right.
build another company.
Right.
Once you've done it, once you've figured
Right.
it out, once you've got, because like now for yourself, someone could burn your book. You're like, okay, I'll write another one.
Exactly.
I know how to do it now. I've done it, right? I've been a keynote speaker. I've attracted that into my life. No one can take that from you, right? And so that's the
That's right.
problem of being consistent with this practice. Let me ask you this as we get ready to land this. You know, when you think about just the reflective and self-assessment portion that you kind of go through, because I do find the writing part in the morning to be very meditative and reflective. How do you feel like it's helped you with even your like time management? Because I know you have a section here about time, increasing your efficiency. How do you feel like it's helped you again overall?
So the journaling, again, is one part of it, but the journaling is sort of the start of it. There are 20 things that I try to do every day.
Yeah.
And if I don't start with the journaling, then my day doesn't feel like I've started correctly.
Right.
Because it is the first thing. The sitting quietly, receiving a message, getting my directions about where I'm going. If I don't have that, then I don't necessarily move in the right direction and I don't do it efficiently. If that answers your question, I'm not sure I answered the question, but the journaling helps me to be more efficient with my time because I know where it is that I'm going. Whereas opposed to some days people will interrupt you and I don't get the journal first. And I'm like, dang, like I'm off kilter because that the journal helps me. It's the starting place. It launches me to where I'm supposed to go.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. But I will also say this, if this is something as you're listening and you want to become someone who journals, right? And you want to get to that point where you can sit quietly and kind of process and kind of go down that route. One, I would say definitely get your book, the Journeying Forward, because you have like a guide for like a whole year of weekly, which I thought was excellent, with some amazing questions at the end of each chapter and some things to do, right? Because I know one chapter you're like, by now you should have an accountability partner. And it's like, so it's somewhat directive. You open with questions, but it's a little directive too, which is good, right? Because people need direction.
Right. I took direction. Somebody told me to do it. So yes.
And that's the other thing that's about it, is that you're not asking people to do in the book things that you haven't done yourself.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Your yearly journey going through this again.
Absolutely.
Voluntoling you to do this.
Voluntold. Yes. And I mentioned there's now an audio version. So if you don't want to read, there's a three times a week. You can pick it up on any of the Spotify, Apple Music, etc., Amazon Music. There's a version. There's a gentleman in Canada. His name is Dave. He produces it, edits it, adds music to it. I tell him he makes me sound like I know what I'm talking about. Robin comes on in the end. Dr. Robin, she comes on the end. She does the reflections and actions. All I do is just share what it is that I get each morning. I put it on paper and then I say it and they do whatever they're going to do with it.
That's excellent. That's excellent. If people want to get to know you more, and where can they find you?
Yeah, they're like everybody else, simply have a website. It's nathanielaturner.com, NATHANIELA, as in Apple, TURNER.com.
Well, Nathaniel, we'll make sure we have the website and all your information in the show notes. My team will put that together. And I have really enjoyed our conversation. And it's so refreshing to meet a kindred spirit who has had that experience. And I'm telling you, if you follow the wisdom here of journaling forward, right, you need to process limiting beliefs and those kinds of things. And there's a whole framework around that. I think I've done a podcast on that. But if you make it a practice to journal forward and write out your life before it happens, you will be utterly amazed about what would happen, what's going to happen in your life and the life you're going to be able to live. Good thing is that if you do it positively, those things are going to come true. But if also you do it in the wrong way, those things can come true. So this is a very powerful tool that you want to use in a very positive way, because you can manifest whatever you write down, if you focus on it enough, you can bring it into your life. So you want to be very careful about what you bring into your life. But Nathaniel, I just want to say,
I'm in trouble now.
I know, right? No, you're in trouble in a good way. This is trouble, as John Lewis would say. This is good trouble. I really appreciate you coming and sharing your story, sharing your insights about the book and all that you have learned, gained, and benefited, and the example you were able to show just in how you use this principle with your son and what's happened in his life.
I appreciate it. I'm grateful for the time to spend with you today.
Excellent. If you're enjoying the content and finding it valuable, we would appreciate it if you could take a moment and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us and helps us reach a wider audience. If you leave us a 5-star review, it would mean the world to us. Not only does it help us improve the podcast, but it also helps us attract more sponsors and grow our community. Thank you again for your support and for listening to the Productivity Smarts podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to Productivity Smarts, where we help you achieve your goals and live your best life. We hope you've gained valuable insights and actionable strategies to boost your productivity and increase your happiness and fulfillment. Remember to apply what you've learned and keep striving towards your goals. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiring episodes and expert advice from our host, Gerald J. Leonard. Until next time, keep pushing forward and unleashing your productivity smarts.